Well,
Yeah. Let's go
doing that, I
through.
would like to say it's a good idea to at least watch the vision speech for family reunion because it really kind of goes over a ton of numbers and a lot of things to think about with the upcoming year and what our industry is going to look like.
Yeah, it's a great point. When you see the vision speech slash state of the company, that should be something that if you have to be in court, tell the judge you'll be late. Like that's something you shouldn't miss. You should not miss. And I can tell you this much. Uh, he will release the slide deck. He does a ton of information, the Canadian market, the North American market, the US, and the slide deck from that will be released immediately afterwards. And there's going to be elements of that slide deck you'll want to steal and make part of your listening presentation. So if you can make it to any of the digital stuff, if you're not heading to Vegas, please, 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 please do. Have a great weekend, guys. We'll see you soon.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Some of you know me, or I feel like most of you here know me. I'm Carrie Kellerman, and you can find me usually hanging out at the Portsmouth office. Um, hey, Patrick. Thanks for getting off screen. I was gonna say, I usually like to engage with people, especially if it's small group. Hey, Heidi. Um, so if you guys want to come off screen, that'd be great. If you're not comfortable with it, totally get it. I will say, feel free to interject. If you put something in the chat, I may not catch it. So if someone's too shy to talk and they put in the chat, someone that's a little more brazen, please just let me know that there's a question in the chat and I'll happily answer it. I also talk, for those that do know me, I talk really fast. I try to slow it down, doesn't always work, especially if I'm excited about what I'm talking about. Feel free to tell me to slow down. I'm not originally from New Hampshire, I'm from New York, so that has a tendency to come out sometimes. We have the lovely Sue Doyle on here today, so Sue, you should be prepared. I'm probably going to ask you to speak as well. No, just want to give her a heads up on that in case she's just trying to listen.
Good morning.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you for being
Good
here.
morning. I've known Sue for a very long time. She is a wealth of knowledge and just probably one of the nicest people you'd ever come across in your entire life. I adore her.
Oh, I'll send you the cash later for saying that.
Thank you. I'll give you a screenshot of my daughter's Venmo because that's where all my money goes anyway.
That sounds very familiar. Yes.
Great. All right, so it looks like the last time you guys were here, you were working with buyers and sellers from getting an agreement through getting an offer. So today we're going to cover the offer process. We're going to cover the steps to submit an offer as a buyer's agent and review the offer as a listing agent. Does that make sense? So we're going to do one side and then we're going to do the receiving side. The next session, you'll cover negotiations and what happens if the offer is not accepted outright. If you don't have the Ignite workbook, I'll keep the QR code on there for another second if you need to picture it. If you're not sure where to get the workbooks and the QR code's not working for you, I'd say reach out to Tim, only because I don't know where they keep them anymore. I used to, I don't anymore. Tim just sends me what I need and then I teach. So our belief systems, have you guys heard of this before? Has anyone gone over it? I believe Jen's going over it in every office meeting. Yes, no? You can do a little thumbs up. There you go. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Great. Our agenda today is know how to communicate with your buyers and sellers and your co-agent during the offer process, understanding best practices for making and receiving offers in your market. Start thinking about what you will learn today, and let's consider what questions you may have and what we'd like to learn more about. So interesting because this course is really designed for communication amongst the agents. We usually go into breakouts and you'll see that my class will end fast because I talk fast and we're not doing these little breakout things. But on that note, why don't I do this? What is one or two things you guys would like for me to cover today, just so I can make sure I hit it? It could be anything as simple as like, how do I find the listing paperwork? What Where do I put it in command? Anything like that. You can put it in the chat, and I'm going to give you a full minute for that. Or you can unmute and talk to me.
I would like to go over where you find that stuff.
Okay. So where to? I take notes because a little bit of ADD and I will forget. Let me see if I can see all of you for a second. Can you guys tell me, is everyone here licensed in New Hampshire?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, New Hampshire only.
okay. And then I didn't catch who WBHR is.
Yes,
What's your name again, sir?
Brian Harrington.
Brian. Okay. Oh, hi, Brian.
Hi.
Okay. All right. So, perfect. What I'll do just to make it easier, even though some of you might be dual licensed, when it comes to where to find stuff, we're just going to focus on the New Hampshire contract just because it's a little easier and I think you'll get some more value out of it. If I try and do both, we'll be here for like 2 days. Fair? Great.
Okay.
Some of the best agents I know love nothing more than a difficult negotiation that gives them a chance to really shine, to acknowledge objections, to discover solutions in which both sides can be happy. Carrie Kellerman. I will say this is really true. In the past couple of years where everything had been going fast and furious and you literally just had to throw out a bunch of offers and keep your fingers crossed that one would stick, that, although busy, was not enjoyable for me. I truly enjoy going through those negotiations, trying to make everything work for all parties and ultimately getting to the closing table. Some people view negotiations as a battle. I do not. I view negotiations as a way to have open communication and create a better understanding of what the buyers need, what the sellers need. And when you guys go through this process, the most important thing to remember is that what our feelings are about anything do not matter. Our feelings are not important. We feel offended, it doesn't matter. If we feel angry, it does not matter. All that matters is what is in the contract, what your client is looking for, and how to try and get that for them and how to figure out how to make that happen. So many times agents get very emotional, and there's no need. There's no need to get emotional. There's no need to sit there and say things like, you know, my seller is going to be so pissed off, or my seller thinks your buyers are unreasonable. Well, that doesn't matter. They either accept the contract or they don't accept the contract. It doesn't matter what you think or how that feels. What matters is what can we get done. And I just say that because I've had many agents, and you will have agents that will suddenly email you or text you or call you and say things that are just coming from left field. And so for you guys, just center yourselves, hear what they say, calmly respond in a manner that's just relevant to the contract and not feeding their emotions. It's probably one of the best pieces of advice I can give you. All right. So we're going to go through the offer process. Buyers make an offer, seller can respond in one of 3 ways. They can counter the offer, they can accept the offer, or they can reject the offer. If they counter the offer, that's when negotiations start. If they accept the offer, then we start the process of contract to close. If they reject the offer, the buyer's agent should contact the listing agent to find more. Don't assume that no means no. There have been instances where I've been told no and had a good heart-to-heart conversation with my client because I knew that they had the ability to make that offer into a yes. I let them know we put our best effort out there. You know, how much do you love this house? Is this the house you truly want to be in? Yep, it is. All right, then we have to do whatever it was to make that deal happen. And then I call the agent to say, all right, my clients are willing to go to this number, which is what the seller wanted. And the agent said, well, he's already accepted an offer. And my response was, has he signed it yet? And the agent said, no. I said, so you have nothing in writing. There's no reason he couldn't accept my offer. I suggest you present it. And she presented it and our offer got signed, and I'm sure another agent was very disappointed. And those are things you need to remember. It's like, just because the answer is no, it doesn't mean no, never. It just might mean not like that, not this way, not quite yet. So you got to figure out how to get to the yes that you want to make your clients happy. The paperwork offers some suggestions and some conversations to ask. So my question I'm supposed to ask is, what emotions do buyers and sellers have at this stage of the process when they're writing offers? What emotions do you think, or have you experienced with your buyers and sellers?
I would assume with buyers, they're nervous.
Yeah, because the
all,
unknown,
all of them.
all the emotions. I used to say all the time, Sue, that after being in this business for like 7 years, we should all have like honorary psychology degrees.
Yes, and after 10, probably a doctorate, I think, is appropriate.
Oh, well then, Dr. Carrie over here.
Yeah.
They do have. There are a lot of emotions when it comes to buying or selling a house. And, a good example is, and I've shared with other agents, especially when they ask me if they want to go and purchase a property or if they're trying to sell their own home, can they represent themselves? The answer is yes. Should you represent yourself? Probably not.
Nope.
Probably not. I have no problem representing myself on a purchase of an investment property because it either works or it doesn't. I'm not emotionally invested. I'm not tied to it. It's not, oh, I feel my forever home. It's not that. So that is fine if you have that temperament to be able to do so, and you can just kind of walk away if need be. I also have a really stoic husband who will not allow me to get emotionally invested in something like that, because if it's not going to work, he's not going to bother. So I have that balance. However, selling my home, I had someone represent me because there was no way I was going through a divorce. There was no way I could handle dealing with my ex-husband, and there was no way that emotions weren't going to make things difficult. So I gave that opportunity to someone else, and it was Sue knows very well who it is. It was Michael Whitney, and he was the best agent to deal with my ex-husband and keep everything separate emotionally, which I appreciated. And I would never torture Sue with my ex-husband. Not that she couldn't handle it. She just wouldn't talk to me afterwards. Michael, he wouldn't care. So it's important to, really understand what your strengths and your weaknesses are and what your limitations may be while we're going through this. We have an opportunity to invest in real estate and grow our wealth through that. And we should take advantage of that and know that, we don't want to get in our own way of being successful. All right. So prepare to write an offer. To ensure the property is available, we build rapport with the listing agent. So what does that kind of mean? What do you guys think it means to ensure the property is still available? What steps do you take for that?
You would call the listing agent and ask them, is it still available? Have you received offers on it yet? Has there been activity? Things like that. Just to try and get an idea of how much competition's out there, and if the obviously it's still available, so you can make an offer and see it.
Yep. What is what's important to the seller? It might be closing date. It might be more than just the monetary amount. I will say, and I'll probably say it a couple of times as we go through this, being persistent is your best friend. All of us are busy. All of us have a million, spam emails that come in, and now spam phone calls trying to sell us stuff. And sometimes if we don't know who's on the line, we may not answer it right away. And I know way too many agents' voicemail boxes are full. So I would say your best practice to reach an agent is to call them, text them, and then email them. And when I call and I do leave a voicemail, I tell them I'm going to text them and email them, and I tell them to respond in whatever way is most convenient to them. Same thing when I send the text, hey, I left you a voicemail, I'm sending you an email, please respond in whatever way is comfortable for you. And then the same with the email. I'm pretty sure Sue Doyle has had that experience with me when I've needed to find the answer to something. And it's just, I feel like, yes, it might be annoying to the other agent, and it's also helpful to the other agent because then they know they don't have to call you back. They could just send you a text to get those answers. What is the other thing that actually I don't think is on here that we should be doing before we write an offer and really before we show a property to a client? What is another question that we are supposed to be asking every time?
You've got to find out whether or not the seller's offering a buyer's agency commission.
Compensation.
And, compensation, and ask if they're able to cover the compensation that you have on your buyer's agency agreement.
So I handle this in two ways. If it is a KW agent that I know has been well trained, I will ask the question, is your seller offering buyer's agency compensation? I have my client signed at blank. They usually will just respond. If it is another company, I just kind of test the waters to see what I'm dealing with. And I just ask them, is your seller offering buyer's agency compensation? And 99% of the time they say yes, blank, whatever it is. I don't want to necessarily show my hand on what I have my client sign for. So I'd rather them tell me what potentially could be the max amount instead of saying, like, let's say you had your client signed at, I want to say 2 apples. I hate using that phrase. But the seller's willing to offer 2.5 apples. If you ask it in that way, they may only respond with, yeah, they'll compensate you 2 apples, and you could have had that extra 0.5. So I suggest if you're working with somebody outside of our brokerage who hasn't necessarily been trained the way we have, just try and ask the question a little more open-ended to see what you could get. Building report the listing agent. We are not in the day and age where we can just send our buyers to open houses and kind of leverage out our time in that way. Before, everything was crazy and you could only see properties at open houses. So you might be working with a couple of buyers at the same time, and that was how you're able to get everyone into the properties they needed to be in. Now it's better to try and go there, meet the agent, have a conversation, be super friendly, ask them a lot of questions, and try and figure out what their personality is so that when you present your offer, they think of you favorably. They think of you as someone that would be great to work with. It's not supposed to matter when the listing agent presents the offer to the sellers, and I will tell you that it does. It matters. You will have the listing agent say, this person's great to work with, and that person was very critical of the house. That person, I've worked with them before and they're not so pleasant to work with. And that will change the seller's mind as to which offer to take. Not supposed to happen. And the reality is people let emotions run when they shouldn't. So do you disagree or agree with those things? I don't know if you heard that. I always like talking to Sue. She's very high on the ethical and morality scale of how our business runs. Okay. All right. Patrick said earlier, you inquire if there are any other offers on the property. If you saw that the property was under agreement and fell through, the agent might say in the listing, oh, due to buyer financing. Well, you can dig a little bit deeper. Was it really due to buyer financing, or was it due to they got cold feet, or was there a home inspection that happened? Do you have any results from that home inspection? If the agent has the results from the home inspection, they really do need to share that information if anything was found and it wasn't updated on the property disclosures. You can ask about the seller's motivations and needs. It's kind of I don't want to put an agent in a uncomfortable position where they may be sharing information they shouldn't be sharing. However, I have no problem with my buyers asking those questions. which is why having your buyers there with you there and the listing agent there can be a benefit to you. However, I would ask, what is important for the seller with this closing? Is it time? Is it some leeway on closing date? Are they under contract to move into their next property? All sorts of things, just being considerate to what that other person has to do. At the end of the day, most people only buy or sell a home, 2, maybe 3 times in their lifetime. And the process is incredibly stressful. And we do this every day. So sometimes we may move faster and not consider the added stress that that other person is going to be experiencing. So if we remember that this is a stressful situation and we want to make it as easy, as comfortable, as flawless as possible, we need to ask those questions and really consider those things. So just remember that. There was a great, I don't think, have any of you taken Bold? I know Sue has. Patrick, have you had a chance yet? I think you're all too new.
Negative, I have not.
So Bold will be coming to the area, I'm sure in the spring. I think there's one going on right now. They usually have one in the spring that goes into summer, and then I think fall to winter. So they try and bring it like once a quarter to the area. It's a great class, and previously they had this exercise, and it's always stuck with me, where you had to team up with somebody, and one of you was blindfolded and the other one was able to see, and they couldn't touch you or hold your hand or anything like that. They had to verbally talk you through like an obstacle course of getting past chairs, over things, under things, and the one that wasn't blindfolded had to be very descriptive so that the person that was blindfolded could make their way without falling and hitting into something. And it was a reminder that when we are working with our clients, they are literally like, they're blind. They don't know what is going to happen next. And if we don't explain it to them in a manner that they could understand while not being able to see something, then we're not doing our job. So just kind of that exercise always stuck with me when it comes to how I explain things to people. Okay, ask the listing agent how they want to receive offers. Read the non-public remarks in all of the listings that you're looking at. Read the non-public remarks, read the non-public remarks. I don't think I could say it enough times, because agents will put what is important in that, whether it is do not use .loop, please send in one PDF. What else have I seen? Seller needs to find suitable housing. So you know that should be a additional provision in your contract. But read the non-public remarks, because if the agent takes the time to put something in there and you don't read it and you present an offer that doesn't reflect what's in there, or if you haven't had a conversation, that agent's judging you. Make sure you get your buyer's pre-approval letter from the lender, review the MLS and tax records, produce a comparative market analysis, obtain seller's disclosures and other documents needed. So the market's been a little interesting the past couple of months. And I would say that when you're doing a comparative market analysis, you really want to try and shoot for the last 3 months and then the last 6 months. I don't think you're going to get really accurate pricing if you go back a year. Definitely if you go back 2 years, you will not, because things are starting to adjust a little bit. And you want to make sure that your clients are putting in a competitive offer for the property. And the only way to do that is actually going through and creating a comparative market analysis on the property they're looking to put an offer in. Do you guys have any questions about the stuff here?
Not necessarily. I guess it kind of goes along with it. What's your thoughts on deadlines and how long to do it, or is it all case by case?
What deadlines are you referring to?
Like putting a deadline on the offer.
Oh, super important. So state of Maine conveniently has it as a line item, right? It's what day at 5 p.m. It's right there in the purchase and sale agreement. I enjoy that. New Hampshire does not. So I always try and put it about 24-hour notice. unless, and again, this goes back to talking to the listing agent, if we're an open house on a Saturday and I know they're having an open house on a Sunday, my clients want to put an offer in, I'll ask the listing agent, do you have a deadline? Yes or no, and I'll try and be respectful of that deadline, and that'll be what the offer reflects. I never leave it blank, because leaving it blank is basically saying that offer is just kind of hanging out there in perpetuity and the seller could accept it anytime they want. I, as an agent, do not appreciate when people give a really short deadline. Like if I have an open house for the weekend and they put an offer in prior to the open house and it's like the deadline's an hour before the open house is supposed to start, I will say, you know, I appreciate what you're doing. However, I'm going to present the offer and my clients are going to make a decision as to whether or not they want to accept the offer or they want to continue with the open house and see how things go. So it's all in what your strategy is. I am not an aggressive person. I feel like those types of offers are super aggressive. But they work for people. So if that's what you're comfortable with, you could do that. Just the important thing is to make sure you have a deadline in there. Is that helpful? Patrick?
Yeah, that was very helpful.
Okay. I'm never going to tell you you have to do X unless literally you're violating something in the code of ethics. And then I will tell you, no, you cannot do that, or yes, you can do that. When it comes to things like this, I'm going to give you options for what works best for you, your personality, your morals, and your business. And just keeping you in the lines of, you know, what's appropriate. However, always putting a deadline is important. So not every agent, oh, go ahead. Who is gonna talk?
I have a
Sam?
question.
Sure.
I have a recent situation with a buyer where there was a property that came on and they were on a drip and it came on active under contract.
Mm-hmm.
So her question was, how could that be? It literally just went on the market 6 hours ago. And I know that anything's possible, right? Like stuff happens like that all the time, but are there regulations on the MLS platform that states it's got to be in an active status? This was in Maine, by the way, that it has to be in an active status for so many hours. It's just a random question. I don't know if you know the answer to.
So I'm gonna have Sue pipe in if she knows. My understanding is, so we can write I can write a contract. And my contract could say that I'm allowed to market the property to the agents in my brokerage and show the property to the agents in my brokerage. I don't have to do it as it's gonna hit the market on we'll say March 1st, right? So if I have a listing and my client wants me to market it to our office, I can do so. And if I'm marketing it to our office, then there may be a chance that one of you guys wants to come take a look at the property with your client and puts an offer in and we get under agreement. So the property never had the chance to hit the market. But I'm going to put that information into the MLS so that it's a valid comp for someone else in the area, so that it shows on my information that I had the volume and the unit, right? So I can put it in and then change it from active to active under contract in that same period of time. So
I think it's helpful too. I mean, we might not see this as much into the future, but super popular areas and limited inventory, there's been a history of a lot of sight unseen offers. So you can inquire, but don't automatically like condemn the listing agent. I had one fairly recently that it was in a condo, and the president of the condo, who had been in that unit over the years, number of times, knew it better than anybody probably, put an offer in and had never seen it, had never stepped foot during the list, this very short listing. So there can be scenarios in the background. That doesn't just mean that the listing agent did something wrong. So yes, I was contacted by MLS saying, how exactly did this happen? And I explained it, and they're like, yeah, okay, that makes total sense. Thank you very much. So respond to those if you have something like that that's super quick. Just explain how it happened, and they're doing their job of just making sure we're not breaking any rules, laws, etc. The other thing I was going to mention on offers, don't make the deadline to an offer 1 hour after an open house ends. Just
God, I
don't.
hate that.
That happened to me, and I was buried in Massachusetts somewhere, and I asked the agent as we were leaving, she's like, oh, 3 o'clock. And I said, oh, like Monday, Tuesday? She's like, no, today. I'm like, what? The look on my face probably told my emotions behind it. But I was like, okay, well, it was a pleasure to meet you, and good luck with your sale. Like, come on. And I think all the rush during the COVID-ish years, whatever we want to call them, was like everything has to happen super fast. But all that meant is you're getting a lot of really crappy offers of people who haven't even thought about whether they really want to live there. So space it out, give some time for people to breathe and get their good paperwork to you.
100%. And yeah, we did have a lot of sight unseen offers, and I had that same problem. We had an offer, it was sight unseen. The open house was scheduled with delayed showings for the open house. So when I canceled the open house and changed it to active under contract, believe me, and Maine is really on it. State of Maine called me and they're like, what has happened here? Can you show that they didn't see the property? They didn't come into the property? Because it looked like I had shown it ahead of time when I had delayed showings, and that is a huge no with the state. And I didn't. They hadn't seen it until after everything had been signed, actually, which I thought was interesting. I don't particularly care for those because it's very easy for that to fall apart, and then it's confusing to the public when they see that it's active, under contract, and they're back to active again. So I try and avoid it. However, this one worked out, it was good, and the state will call you on it. All right. Did we cover everything on this page that you guys feel comfortable with? Just give me some nods or thumbs up.
I have one more question.
Go for it,
Inspection.
Heidi.
So if you mentioned in here, inquire about other offers, why do they fall through? And you mentioned inspections, maybe failed inspections. Is it required to disclose that in paperwork in the MLS if that's happened? I mean, obviously, if you want to update the disclosure, but is that a whole separate like step that can be seen without us inquiring? Like, are there revisions that happen in disclosures that you can see? Do you know what I'm trying to say? How would we know? I don't know. How many really report those findings?
So I'm going to make my statement, and I'm going to allow Sue to interject as well, because I know she's probably had experience or opinions. When I am on the buy side and I am going to negotiate because of home inspection results, I get permission from my client to not just share what they're asking for in the home inspection, to share the entire home inspection report. Because at that point, that agent, if it falls through, has knowledge of everything that was found in the house. And if it falls through, that agent should, in the state of New Hampshire, discuss with their clients that they need to update the purchase and sale, have the clients update the purchase and sale and get new signatures and put that onto the multiple listing service, right? Available for the public. In the state of Maine, we are responsible for those disclosures. So the onus is on us. And we should update the property disclosures and have our client sign it and then put that onto the multiple listing service. That is how it's supposed to go. Does it? Depending on the agent. Have I sent home inspection reports that have shown issues with houses that we ended up not being under agreement and not seeing the purchase and sale, not seeing the, property disclosures updated? 100%. So you have to ask. Sue, did you have anything to add to that?
No, you did a perfect job. It's required, it's expected, it's ethically appropriate. You have facts about the house, you're supposed to share those. So everything you said is spot on perfect.
Thank you. And not everyone does it.
Yeah, definitely that. But then
We
the
do
dilemma
it
comes
with-
in when you know that that listing agent knows something about the house
Mhm.
that's pretty detrimental. And I get it. There's like, it becomes a little bit of an obsession of checking MLS to see when that's updated. And most often it isn't. And it becomes a little like, it's a little hard to let go of that. So we'll leave it up to the brokers to answer what should you do at that point? It's generally, I don't want to speak for them, but at some point during a contracts class, ask that question to the brokers about, I know that the foundation has a 12-foot hole in it. And it's not updated. Is there anything I should do?
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
that is the answer. It's not necessarily, sometimes it can be frustrating with what should be done and what is actually done. Okay, let's get to the next page. So you guys have a prepare and offer checklist that's accessible to you through the workbook. And it just kind of goes down all the things that we discussed. It's there so that you can follow along, making your life a little easier. All right, writing an offer. So we're going to go over price and terms, seller's disclosure, conveyances, earnest money, due diligence, inspection period, time for acceptance, financing terms, buyer pre-approval letter, closing date, home warranty, repair limits, special clauses, and addendums. They want me to remind you that we do not submit love letters for our offer. As an agent, you do not intend to present these letters. You shouldn't be presenting these letters to your sellers if you receive them. There are agents in our office that literally say in every single listing that they will not accept or present any love letters. Do you guys know what a love letter is? Because your clients are going to ask you about them at some point. Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. Thanks, Deanna. All right. That does not mean that you cannot send a letter to the agent that lays out the terms of the offer and thanking them for their time. So I have a Google Doc. It has the KW header on it. I have my name. I have the property's name. I have the agent. It's like a formal letter you learned how to write in school. And it just says, thank you for your time and consideration. I've sent the offer for your convenience. Here are the terms of the offer. And I'll lay out the price, closing date, if there's a home inspections, if the home inspections are going to have a monetary limit on them or whatever it is, preferred title company they should expect to hear from if we're going to be working with them. And anything that would be in the due diligence. And then I sum it up with just thanking them for their time. The house is beautiful. My clients appreciated how well maintained the property is. It's nothing that's a violation of fair housing. It's just talking about the house. And the reason I do it is, and I'm sure if you guys ever receive offers, most of the time we're on our phones. And I don't know about you, but I'm over the age, which actually I learned the other day through trivia, over the age of 40, most everybody needs reading glasses or glasses of some sort. Whether or not you hold out and pretend like you don't, odds are after the age of 40, you need them. So if I get my cell phone and I am out and about and I get an offer in and I try and read that purchase and sale agreement on my phone, it is like a nightmare. I am expanding, I am moving it. I'm just like, I can't see it, damn it. And I hate that. So I send a Google Doc with a letter that lays it all out because it is very easy to open on your phone and see the terms of the contract so that at least they can go have a conversation with their client before they've had a chance to download it and open it. I don't know if you guys have the problem. I just do, and I find it annoying. So that's why I do that. how you present an offer is important as well. So let's see, price and terms. That's time we're at. Would it be helpful if I just opened a blank purchase and sale agreement for the state of New Hampshire while we discuss this?
Yes, please.
I'll do that. I think I have to stop my share. Just give me a hot second. How about this? Give me like 3 minutes and I'll have it pulled up for you. So if you guys need to go get a glass of water or whatever, you can do that right now. Sound good?
Okay, thank you.
Back in 3. Sure, Tim's gonna be super excited with the recording. Recording, and Carrie's not doing anything right now. I'm gonna go grab a cup of water. I'll have that up in just a second. Okay. All right, everybody back? I assume yes. I can see Patrick's back, so. All right, I'm gonna share my screen. I think this is the right one. You guys see the purchase and sale agreement? Just gonna nod.
Yes, I can see.
Perfect. Okay, great. So without going into details of, I'm just gonna go into the nitty gritty of the contract, and it's gonna be like a quick version because I'm sure you guys have all been in contracts class and they review this in much detail. All right, so we're gonna put in the date. We'll do today's date. Happy Valentine's Day. Between the seller, Joe Smith, Oh my God, Carrie. There we go. Joe Smith. Capitals would be better. And of 123 Main and Greenland, Hampshire 03840. And the buyer, Jane Doe. We'll say 123 Water Street. I don't see Hampton Falls. You should have capitals on all these. I'm just being lazy right now. New Hampshire, 38. I don't know what it is. We'll say 4 or 5. So, witness said we're going to agree to sell and convey. Buyer agrees to buy a certain piece of real estate located in the city or town. And we'll say Portsmouth. Well, actually, no, we said Greenland already because that's where it is. Greenland. And located at, we'll change this to 123 Main Street. You don't need to put Greenland right there. In this line here is where you should put the description of the house. So you want to say a legal, whatever it is, a legal multifamily, a legal duplex, a legal condo, a legal single family home. Today we'll do single family. That is 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. All right. So a couple things in this first section real quick. One, if you're looking at a house and the house is vacant, it doesn't appear that Joe Smith is of that house at 123 Main Street, you want to check the tax card to see what his mailing address is, because it might be Joe Smith of New York, New York, 52 West Broadway. You want to make sure that their mailing address is in that first line if possible. Second, with your buyers, you want to make sure that the buyer's mailing address is what is filled in there. I've had people that have put the buyer's name and then the address of the property as the buyer's address in that section. So that's not correct. That's why I mentioned it. And then number 2, again, check with what the listing says, check with what the tax card says, check what the deed says about the property to make sure you're putting in the correct information. You're going to put the county, book and page, and the date that the previous people purchased it, not today's date. The reason that's important is because we have had agents that used to be with our market center that the address they put down that was for sale and the book and page number they put down was not correct. It was actually the neighbor's address. The agent had made a mistake on one side or the other. So technically, everyone agreed to sell and buy property that was not theirs, is what had happened. If they had read the deed, they would have seen that it didn't match, and then they could have corrected it earlier. It created a lot of problems for them and a lot of extensions to get that deal closed. So here we're going to do the selling price. So whatever the dollar amount is, we'll say 500,000. And it auto fills it right here for you at 500,000. The deposit in form of personal check, wire, whatever it's going to be, not cash. You're going to put that there. Be held in escrow by whatever firm is holding the escrow money. If you're choosing to have it held at Keller Williams, you need to put Keller Williams Coastal and Lakes & Mountains Realty. You need to fill out all of it because that is the name of our brokerage. Either has delivered or will deliver within X amount of days of the effective date. Ask your clients if they're willing to do it. If it's being held at our office, we have an app that you can use to have them send the money. It's kind of like a Venmo, but not Venmo. They can do that pretty quickly. So that could be within 3 days. If they're going to mail it, and I'm going to say, I know our office mailed out our 1099s by the 31st of January, and I know that most people haven't received them yet. So I would suggest if your clients are going to mail something, they send it priority mail and they don't send it snail mail. Or they can drop it off the office, or they can give it to you and you will then bring it to the office within that time frame. I usually do about 5 days if it's going to be anything other than the wire transfer or the app for Venmo. All right. And then you're putting the amount of earnest money. Buyer agrees an additional deposit. If they're going to do a second deposit, I avoid this because I just find it to be a waste of time personally. But some people like having 2 deposits. So you're going to put that amount there and the date. And this last section is whatever the escrow deposit is minus the purchase of the property. That number you put here. So if we're going to do a $5,000 escrow, then this is going to be 495,000. So you guys notice when I put the number in here that it changes the number up here, correct? Assuming you're all nodding and saying yes. Do we notice that it does not change the number here? So when you're going through negotiations, if you're rewriting your purchase and sale agreement, this number, you have to do the math and put it there. I say that because 1, I've made that mistake on more than one occasion, and 2, I've received that mistake on more than one occasion. So just remember, it doesn't auto-fill it in for you at that point. So the deed will be conveyed by warranty deed, quitclaim deed, whatever the deed is. That's where you put that. Transfer title on or before. This is where you've had that conversation with the agent, asking them what is important about the closing date, what, trying to figure out what a closing date is going to work for everybody. Are your people selling a home? Is their home already under contract? What is the closing date of their home if you're not the one representing them and they're coming from out of state? Do they need some time to get here to sign the paperwork, or are they going to be able to sign it remotely? So it's a really big question, is the date. And do not forget, ask the lender, can you make a closing within this time period? Because if you're doing like a 30-day close, that lender may end up hating you because they can't get something to close for 45 days. So just communication, talking to people, getting the information you need so that this can be accurate and you don't have to do addendums after. You're going to do full possession. You want it in broom clean condition. Broom clean means that there is nothing in the house. Broom clean does not mean that the house was scrubbed down and is perfect and shiny and you can smell the bleach or Fabuloso, whatever you guys use. If your client is ADD or is OCD and everything has to be absolutely perfect, I would suggest 1, you either write into the contract that it be professionally cleaned, or 2, that is a great closing gift for them, professionally cleaned house. Again, communication. And then the walkthrough, I usually do 24 hours prior. Representation, out of courtesy, and Sue can pipe in, because I know this is what I've always been taught. Whenever I've been representing the buyer, I always put the selling agent first. It just is a courtesy, and I put myself second. It's not necessarily what you have to do. It just seems polite. And then if agents are both from the same brokerage, that's known as a designated agency. You're going to put insurance. That basically says that the house is going to have to be insured during this time period. If there's any loss that exceeds, I always put $1,500 when I'm working with my buyers. Then something happens to the house over $1,500, the listing agent would have to let the buyer's agent know that there was, teenage daughter drove into the garage doors. It's going to cost $3,000 to fix it. You just let them know and the seller can fix it or decide after. What else are the key factors? I don't want to go into too much of the nitty-gritty of it. I'm just trying to hit what they're asking you in the Ignite. Prorations, or you're agreeing that the buyer is going to pay the seller for the personal property that they're acquiring, which is the fuel. And that will be done at the cash price available at the company that last delivered on a date closest to the closing. So if your seller paid $4 a gallon, but when you're closing, it's $3.50, the seller's getting $3.50 because that is what the value is of that product at that time. Property includes all fixtures. This is where I would put washer, dryer, stove, range, fridge. If there's a shed that's on blocks, that's not on a foundation, I would put shed. I've put hot tub. Some lenders may kick that back, saying that you have to add that there's no monetary value attached to it. Or some may ask you to take it off and then you'd have to put it in a different addendum. Not all of them. Depends on how picky the lender is. So lead, if it was built before 1978, then lead disclosure is required. If it's built after that, it is not required. Seller prior acknowledges prior receipt of seller's property disclosures forms and signifies by signing here or initialing there. Then we have inspections. You choose what inspections, or you talk to your buyer and you guys work together to choose what inspections are going to happen. Do you need to do a radon water test if it's town water? Probably not. Water quality? Probably not, unless you're worried about pipes having lead, then you can test for the lead in it. Because those results are available with the town. If you do a general building inspection, you do not put a water quality test, are you, as the listing agent, allowed to let the home inspector pull a water quality test? Anyone have an answer to that? What do you guys
Again,
think?
I sorry, I spaced out for a second.
Sure. You want me to say it again?
Yeah.
All right. If you, as the listing agent, accept an offer that only says, sorry, I swallowed the water and it hit me wrong, the general building inspection, and the home inspector's there, and the home inspector says, oh, I'm gonna go get the water test, what should you do?
I
If you're the
mean,
list-
I'm sorry. I think they can go do it, but it's not gonna have any bearing to the contract. If it's not stated, a water test needs to be passed. A water
you would-
test could fail, right?
Mhm.
But that doesn't null and void a purchase and sales agreement if it's not stated that it's going to be.
Heidi, you seem like someone that very much follows the letter of the law and feels that everyone else should as well. The reality is, one, shouldn't, because your seller did not agree to it on the purchase and sale. So by doing so, they're doing something the seller didn't agree to. You can ask the seller if they're willing to give permission, and the seller can say yes or no. Two, if it is pulled, and yes, technically, if the water test comes back and there's an issue, technically they can't walk away for that. Technically, they can't argue or negotiate that. However, in the state of New Hampshire, you do not have to give a reason as to why you're walking away from a deal. So it could have high arsenic, could have high radon, could have high whatever. And your buyers, if you're like, I'm representing the buyers, you're representing the seller, my buyers could say, I want to purchase that house. I could say, that's fine, we can get out because we had due diligence for home inspections. And they're going to say, well, we didn't agree, we didn't ask for water, but it's water. Like, I do not have to inform them. I don't have to tell them why you're walking away. I just have to say you weren't satisfied with the results and you don't want to ask them to fix it. So that's why we don't allow them to. And I've had that happen. And I've called my buyers and been like, I'm going to ask you a question. You have the right to say yes or no. However, I'll remind you, it was not in the purchase and sale, and you are under no obligation to say yes. And then they weren't allowed to pull the water test. Did not make that other agent happy, but I was like, oops, it's in the agreement. If it's not in the agreement, it doesn't exist.
It's the best scenario ever when you're at an inspection for something that is pretty simple, like one item checked off or something. And then you like 6 trucks pull up from all these different companies. And it's like, I'm sorry. Did I miss something here?
Yep.
No, the agent decided to, or buyer and or agent decided, well, yeah, we'll just do it all at the same time and it's fine.
Right.
No, we're here for a half hour to check X, and 6 different companies walking around is not what we agreed upon. And I'm sorry, I'll go call the seller, but that's not what was authorized in the agreement.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great.
Yep. No, it is, and it happens. And I don't feel like it happens for nefarious reasons. I feel like it happens of lack of education and lack of communication between the other parties. Maybe that buyer's agent thought that general building covered everything.
No, this one anyway, it was like, well, we're already here, so what's the big deal? You go back to the office after we finish our good 30 to 40 minutes for that one item that was agreed to, and why don't you call your broker now and see if you can schedule a time with him or her And
to review why this isn't happening. So I always find it hilarious when you share things because in the back of my head, I feel like you have every right to sit there and be like, do you know who I am? Do
no,
you know what I
oh
do?
God, no, 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 no. I am so far the opposite.
I know.
Anything to do with Concord is never, ever, ever. I would
know.
never bring that up. I am absolutely the opposite. It's just sometimes, and I always have to remember too, like other offices don't have the advantages in our brokers and our systems. And I always have that in the back of my head because sometimes you want to bark. I don't typically, unless it's something really pushed to the limit. I try to be very sweet and like, well, let's go back to the offer and that type of thing. So nope,
Nope.
I'm
But out of
nope.
anybody, you absolutely have the right to do that. Because I've had agents be like, I've been doing this for 26 years. I'm like, that's great.
And you haven't learned anything that's changed in 26 years. So not that I would ever say that, but that's what's in the back of the brain. So
But we scream on the inside, we don't say on the outside.
exactly. Pretend as I grew up and most of the time it works, but sometimes it slips a little bit. My parents always said, pretend your grandmother's sitting on your shoulder.
Oh,
Sometimes I have to like take her off the shoulder, but it's so rare, mostly joking. But your grandmother on your shoulder is kind of a powerful thing, like when dealing with things that aren't going the way that they're supposed to.
you must have had a very impressive grandma, because if I acted as if my grandmother was on my shoulder, I would be 100 times more abrasive than I can be now.
Yes, I had a little lace collar, baking cookies, kind of like Leave It to Beaver scenario, and and she would, you never swore in front of your grandmother, or anything that wasn't, pretty high level on,
Oh,
manners. But
that's lovely.
she
Yeah.
slips off every now and then and takes a little break.
Mine, mine would talk to you, and if you were annoying her in the kitchen while she was holding the knife, she would talk to you with the knife like this and tell you that she was going to cut off your tongue. That's how my grandmother was. So a little different. All right, so restrictive covenants. This part right here, calendar days. So state of New Hampshire, state of Maine, difference. New Hampshire is calendar days, so when you're putting in dates, consider holidays if they're going to interfere, because of like 4th of July, Memorial Day weekend, any of those things, especially if you're getting test results that need to come back from a lab, because most of those labs are going to be closed for those holidays and it's going to delay it. You don't want to have to send an addendum to get results back because you didn't just look at the calendar at the beginning of writing the offer. So be aware of calendar days. In Maine, it is business days, so that can work out to your advantage, especially if you need a little bit of time and there is a holiday weekend, you have the business days afterwards. I like Maine better in that way. Okay. Financing, you just put the terms of whatever the pre-approval letter is from the lender. If you're not sure, ask the lender. And then additional provisions, concessions, and professional fees. These are all the clauses. I'm in zip forms right now. So in zip forms, you can go to the library here and look for a clause if need be. So you can do an attorney review. You can see what the clause is, copy and paste it if you need to. These are approved clauses from each state that is in your zip forms. However, you want to make sure you're reading them and that they make sense for what you're actually asking. And, if you need, you can run it past somebody and say, hey, this is what I'm putting in for an additional provision. Can you tell me what it is I'm saying here? You can call Jay, you can call Tom, you can ask any of the managing brokers. If you're not giving the details of the contract and you're just playing contract theory and you're curious about it, you could call Sue and be like, Sue, I'm going to put this in additional provisions. What do you think? What am I asking for? And if she says you're asking for X, Y, and Z, perfect. Then you've done it in a way that people understand what you're asking for. Okay. And then, yeah, that's just the rest of it. But I think that covers pretty much everything on that list while showing you the purchase and sale agreement. Was that helpful for you guys to see it while we talked about it? Yeah, okay. It just seems like it's so generic in the Ignite that we could just talk about it, but I need the visuals for myself to learn things better. All right, we'll go back to all right. I'm gonna close my other stuff so I can find my screen share again. There we go. There it is. Let's see. Any questions about any of this stuff, or do you guys feel comfortable? You can just put in the chat yes or no.
I have a question. So
Go
what is
ahead,
the
Mildred.
yes, what is the typical earnest money amount and how to explain about earnest money to the buyer?
Sure.
Is it
So-
affect the offer?
Depending on the area that you're working in, they're like, when you start going to the west side of the state, they all kind of do things a little different. Around here, if it's a property that's under like 600,000, I usually suggest between 5 and 10,000 for the earnest money. If it's over, I usually suggest, 1 to 3%, depending on the property. So there's no like hard and fast rule. I've had clients where they've literally only had $500 to put down, so I put down $500. And then when I explain it to my buyers as to what it is, sometimes I might be dating myself. And I try and explain it as simply as possible, is that earnest money is kind of like back in the day where you could put something on layaway. And you had like $100 purchase and you put $10 down. So when you're able to afford the $100, you come back and it only cost you 90. Most people get it when I say it like that. The other way I've used is just kind of like it's showing that you're invested in purchasing the property. And let's say we're putting $5,000 down. It's letting the seller know that you're serious and you're willing to take your $5,000 and being held in an escrow account that is non-interest bearing, that doesn't go to the seller directly. And when we go to the closing, whatever the lender has told you you need for earnest money in the beginning. So let's say the lender said you needed $25,000. They're going to take that 5,000 we put in for earnest money and credit it back to you because someone else is going to pay the lender that because it's already been paid. So now you're bringing 20,000 to the closing. But at the end of the day, you still put in $25,000. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's helpful.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just try not to overcomplicate it for people while explaining it validly. So you guys have the write your offer checklist. You get to you can review that. I found that checklists are helpful in keeping us on track and not missing any things that as we start getting busier, it might be easy to kind of skip through. So creating a checklist for yourself is a good idea. So you're going to review the contract. You're going to make sure your buyer understands the contract. So when you're talking to your buyer, you're going to ask them what it is they would like to accomplish. And they're going to ask you things like, well, what do you think I should put down for an offer? I don't know. What are you comfortable putting down for an offer? I gave you a market analysis. I showed you the range in which the house could be valued at. We have what the seller is willing to sell it for. What are you willing to purchase it for? And a lot of times if you're in a multiple offer situation, they may be like, well, how much more should I put? And I always say, picture yourself in 2 months, not winning this deal, and you see what the property sold for. What is the number that you would see that would make you go, whew, thank God we didn't offer that much? What is that number? And whatever that number is, below that is what you're willing to pay for it. It's the easiest way I can explain it because I'm not going to tell them what they should buy it for and the exact price they should put down. Because at the end of the day, it's not my money, it's theirs. So review details like price, closing date, inspections, contingencies, and conveyances. Know what's essential in your area. Know standard or common terms for offers in your area, and avoid rookie agent mistakes. Rookie agent mistakes is writing. I saw this, it wasn't one of my contracts, it was someone else's. And the agent wrote down, buyer and seller agree to appraisal. What does that mean? Does anyone have an idea? What does that sentence say? Buyer and seller agree to an appraisal.
That they can get an appraisal, but it's not contingent on what the the appraisal
Results.
yeah, it's not contingent on the appraisal results, just that there is an appraisal.
Correct. And the agent was talking to me and they're like, well, what do I do? And I'm like, well, who do you represent? I represent the seller. I'm like, all right, well, what do you do? It's like, I don't know what they're asking. I say, well, you could ask the agent, what are you asking for here? And they texted the agent and said, what are you asking for here? And the agent said, that we have an appraisal. I looked at the agent I was talking to and I was like, well, they're getting what they asked for. You're allowing an appraisal. And when something happens later on, you get to go back to all you asked for was an appraisal. You didn't ask for anything associated with that. Because you have to remember who are you working for in the contract and represent your client's best interest. It would not be in the listing agent's best interest to sit there and ask the buyer's agent to rewrite it for them, right? Sometimes that's the hardest part, right? Because we know what we know and we know how we're supposed to represent people. And when we have someone else that's not representing their client in a manner that's beneficial for their client, you kind of want to be like, dude. And at the end of the day, it helps my client. I'm under the obligation to represent my client's best interest. And I will tell you, I've had many conversations. If you guys know Shannon Aldrich, she's the one that I took the class with. She used to teach all the classes in our market center. And there were so many times I'd have a conversation with her being like, hey, this isn't right. And she'd just go, who do you represent? And I represent the other party. Well, you're doing your job. That's the best that you could do. It's not your job to educate the other agent. All right.
That is such a hard thing. It's super difficult because I
Yep.
always think about it, I'd want that phrase with 8 or 9 new sentences on there. The what ifs. Here's what we're going to do in this scenario. Here's what we're going to do in that scenario. And it's really hard to let those things, it's hard to recognize, wait a minute, that is so vague that I could, the seller could use that to their advantage. That's really hard. I want these documents with like every comma in the right place. And learning that, what Carrie just said, is very hard. Like the control freaks will have a class at 2:00, Control Freak Club. We want
Freak Anonymous.
Yeah, well, not even anonymous. Like, hey, I just confessed. I'm a super control freak. I want things spelled out, and so there's no issue of, well, it really meant this, but well, that's not what it says. But that's super hard to do, to back up, and you just like, well, wait a minute, on my seller's behalf, this is actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard. That's not an easy thing to acquire.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Like, still, as Nathan would say, he would probably like deny this if you see him in the hallway. A couple of times in history, he has sung some Disney movie, but Let It Go.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's serenaded with that several times, and yeah, sometimes you have to let it go.
You do.
Yeah.
In the great words of Princess Elsa. Can you guys see the screen share?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I don't know what I did. I can't. So I'm gonna
question.
stop and I'm gonna reshare it again because I only see you guys and that's throwing me off. Let's see, share. There we go.
Quick question about what we were just going over. So in this situation,
Yeah.
where you kind of have to do what's best in the interest of your client, would it be morally ethical that after the contract closes to reach out to that agent and, just kind of do a, hey, I hope there's no hard feelings, kind of deal?
Mhm.
Would that be okay?
Oof.
Because I could see where that could really ruffle people the wrong way. And, I always try to be a pleasant person to everyone I can, but obviously you have to service the client first.
So, one, morals and ethics are two separate things when it comes to what we have to do. We have to follow the code of ethics. Our morals may be stronger than what's in the code of ethics. So we have to really think about, like, I always teach my kids, is it a fact or a feeling? Like what you're experiencing right now, fact or feeling. So when you're thinking about that, you have to think about, is this actually ethics or is this my morals? Um, I when agents get frustrated and they say things to me, I will say, I am following the legal directive of my client and holding to the terms of the offer. And that's kind of all I give. I'm if you work with me, you will know that I am very tactful. If you know me personally, you know that I can be very hot-headed, have very low filter, and say exactly what I'm thinking. However, when it comes to dealing with and working with somebody, I lock that down. I'll go home and yell at my husband about something instead. So, um, truly, it's not your job to teach them and educate them. It's your job to hold to the contract. And I think that if you were to do something afterwards, you might, Sue can correct me, you might be putting yourself in some way, in some sort of liability and taking ownership for things you don't need to take ownership for. Does that sound right, Sue, or am I being too harsh?
Yeah, I think, depends on what the scenario was. If
Yeah.
if it's a sort of traditional closing and there is some time to chat, I mean, I've had agents come up to me like after the clients have left or whatever and just be like, I'm really sorry that thing about the water happened. And I I don't think I've ever like presented a topic like that after the fact, but it's been presented. And my response is pretty standard, like, hey, you know what? We're all good. Like they're closed. Everybody's happy.
Yeah.
We had a moment and it's over and it's no big deal. I look forward to the next closing with you. Just if it's
Yeah.
super brutal and they've like broken the law, go to the brokers and address it accordingly. But there are just some times that being graceful and accepting that people don't do the same things that we all do
Mhm.
will be fine.
Also, if it's super brutal, odds are you're not closing in the same room anyway.
Well, there could be.
You know, um, yeah. So I hope that was helpful, but yeah, we do have to be cautious. And at the end of the day, if it's something you want to address, you definitely need to consult the broker first and ask what they want you to do as well. Because you do want to we all have to play in the same sandbox. It seems like there's a lot of agents, however, there really isn't. You're going to work with these people more than once. So if there's something that needs to be addressed, you should bring it up to your broker and then come up with a plan on how to address it appropriately.
After
Yeah, after closing. So
don't
present,
screw anything up in the meantime.
yeah. Present the offer checklist, double check all the documents, follow the instructions, label all the documents clearly, order the documents logically, send an email summary. That's what I do with the Google Doc. You can put it in the email as well. Notify the listing agent and add all documents to command, and then consult with your buyer. So labeling all the documents clearly is helpful for them and helpful for you, because if you just have a million downloads that say property disclosures, you're going to have to continuously open them to figure out what property you're talking about there. But if you do prop disclosures, 123 Main or whatever, purchase and sale, I usually do purchase and sale, address, client's last name as the save to save it as, just so that when I'm looking at all my downloads, because I do not Like I live in my downloaded little tab. I do not put anything into other files because they all get uploaded into command, and I don't like doing things that seem redundant, even though they may be more beneficial for my organization. So naming everything what it's supposed to be is important. Deed should be deed with the address, or deed address last name, whatever it is that works for your system. When the agent's receiving offers and they're receiving multiple offers and they're able to look at their downloads and they see your client's last name attached to it, or they see the address, the property we're discussing, because that listing agent may have several listings, it's going to be helpful and they're going to appreciate that. Let's see. Adding all your documents to command. Would it be helpful? So we have like 30 minutes left. Would it be helpful for me to open up command and show you guys kind of where things are, so you know what it means by upload to command, or would you rather just get through the rest of the slides? It's up to you guys. I can go either way. Y'all have been in this for a bit. Has other agents open command for you?
I feel as though I'm pretty familiar with command, and we have KT available if there's questions.
Okay, everyone else agree with that?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, cool. Thank you. All right. So receive and review the offer, make sure the offer is complete. So this is you as the listing agent now. When you're getting offers from other agents, you want to make sure that you have the complete offer. You want to confirm receipt of the offer to the agent. Back to the other slide, as the agent, as I said earlier, I call, I text, and I email you. It goes for everything. If I'm requesting a showing, if I'm sending you an offer, if I'm responding to something, if I don't think that that agent is going to see my information right away in a timely fashion, I am calling, I am texting, and I am emailing. It is a repetitive cycle of which people that work with me know that and expect it to happen. Because I do not want any communication to fall through, because that is that's what kills deals, is when you're not communicating on a high level. So when you receive the offer, give the courtesy to the other agent via email, text, phone call, whatever is going to work for you. I've received your offer. I will be presenting it to my client by blank time, blank day, and we'll be getting back to you, anticipating to get back to you by blank time and blank day. It's just courtesy. Call the lender if you're curious about any of the qualifications. If you work with a good lender, you can ask your lender to reach out to the listing agent after you've sent the offer, so that the lender is already starting that line of communication with that listing agent, which will make the listing agent feel comfortable knowing that, okay, well, they're already, without being under contract, they're already trying to communicate with me. So this might be a really good deal. It might be an easy deal to work with. Create an outline document to reference when you call your sellers. I have a spreadsheet. I've had it forever. And it was started during COVID to handle multiple offer situations. It has all the key facts of the offer, including if there is an escalation clause and if there's multiple offers, what the net would be at the end of the day for my client. In those, there is a name. I do not put the buyer's name on the top. I put the agent's name. The agent that sent me the offer is what's across the top, and that's what I tell my client, so that they have no idea, when we're just looking at the spreadsheet, to avoid any biases that might come up. Okay, it's telling us to create an offer in command, but you guys feel like you've done that enough, and you do have KT. I will tell you, and Tiffany Hampton goes over command too. I love using command. She referenced a term the other day, which is a game that she calls Move the Boxes, and it put a name to the game that I've been playing with command since I've used it, which is literally like you can take each person and move them into their next stage. So it's like nurturing, appointment, under contract, and each time you do that, the probability of your income goes up. So my goal is always to like move people to the next one so I can see how much more money I'm gonna make for the year. Something that keeps me entertained. You gotta find something that works for you that keeps you going with this. All right, so review and respond to offer. Buyer makes offer, seller's gonna respond. Didn't mean to do that. So seller can counter the offer, seller can accept the offer, seller can reject the offer. If you have multiple offers and the seller, has multiple offers, they're gonna probably like one more than the other. You're not really allowed to counter the different offers differently. Your best, cleanest way of doing things is to respond to everyone saying, I have multiple offers. Here's your opportunity to send us your highest and cleanest, or let us know that the one you sent us was your highest and cleanest offer. And then, give a deadline for that. See if you're able to get a little bit more favorable terms or compensation for your sellers, and then let them decide on which offer they want to go to. No, we already discussed that part. Respond to an offer. Huh, all right, well, that's cool. I could open command if you guys wanted to. But let's do this. It's 10:37. Let's stop my share. Talk to me about what you found was helpful today. If there's a question, something you want me to elaborate on. If you want me to go into command, I can do that. And the people that don't want to do that can peace out. I'm not going to judge you. You still get credit for being here for the whole day, the whole time. What do you guys want to do?
Well, I'm definitely gonna stay for that.
Open command. Okay.
Yeah, if we
Patrick?
have extra time, I would like to see it too.
Okay.
I have,
And
Oh.
no, sorry, you go.
okay, so I have Roombas running in the background, these little vacuums, so sorry if it's loud. But this is silly, and but I didn't realize in New Hampshire, you could back out of a deal for any reason, right?
Well, no, let me rephrase that.
Well, yeah.
You have due diligence. What you don't have to do is provide the actual line item. Like they're walking away because the roof's not fixed and they don't want you to fix it. You don't have to do that. You just say the buyers are choosing to remove themselves from the contract due to due diligence. The agent's going to ask you and press you, but you're under no obligation to actually tell them why.
Do they get all, like, what about the escrow? Under what conditions is that forfeited? Like the earnest money, sorry, the earnest money deposit.
Oh, so that's in theory, if you were under your due diligence period, right? You're going through that due diligence. That's why we have it there, the 5, 10, whatever days for home inspection. And if you've responded that they're going to withdraw from the offer due to home inspection results and asking for a return, release of the escrow, you should be fine. But I'm not an attorney, and that's not to say there aren't agents out there that wouldn't be more challenging. Usually their issues come up is after the due diligence period is passed and the buyer gets cold feet or wants to walk away. But again, those are things that you have to have a detailed conversation with Jen or Jay or Tom or Nate about that if your buyer's going to do that, or if you're the seller and you don't want to release. Like that is a higher level above my pay grade conversation. I can tell you best practices is, make sure if your people want to walk away, they do it during the due diligence period.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Patrick, any questions?
Nothing's coming to me right now.
All right. Well, if you guys, want to tap out because you got command under control and you just don't want to play around with it, then feel free. It was awesome having you. If you want to stay on, I'm going to open up my command for a hot second, show you some little things that I play with, and then we'll be done. Sound good? And if you guys are going to family reunion, definitely jump on the call at 11 o'clock. If you're not going to family reunion and you want to be able to learn where you can see things, I would definitely jump on at 11 o'clock because there's a lot of valuable information that you can attain without having to go to Vegas. And it's available to us here at the office, so it's worth doing. All right, did I stop my screen share?
Thank you, Carrie Kellerman.
Thank you, Sue Doyle, for all your participation. You're amazing.
Well, I may not have given great ideas, but it's practical.
You always give great ideas. I always appreciate it. Okay,
You're the
have a good
best.
day.
You
I'll see
too.
you later. All right, so when you guys go into command, where are we at here? So I have, I just switched my command. So I have my personal, my team, and I don't know why the images aren't up for either. So we'll just play my personal. These are my active. So opportunities. This is your opportunity page. You can put in your listings, you can put in your buyers, you can put in your leases. These are ratios. I haven't played around with the team aspects. I literally just changed it over and I've been just working really in zip forms, honestly, for the moment. I'll be uploading everything into my command. So right now it shows you that I have 2 active under contract. So my potential income is this, my probable income is this, because it's taking out ratios of like contracts that fall through. Now, if I click on cultivate, I have 0. Nurture, I have 0. Hot, I have 0 because I haven't added anything. But if I hit here under appointments, all 0. And now I have active. So this one, David can move to showings because I'm showing the property right now. And this one, I just love the little boxes, can come up here to move to under contract. So now my active, I have this, my under contract, I have here. When you click on it, have my clients' names, you have the documents. These are all the documents that you have to have in there. I like to go like this and hit required. So these are the ones that I have to upload. I haven't done it yet. Once they're all uploaded, you filled all the required ones. You want to read through the conditional to make sure if any conditions apply. Like this one, it would be a condominium addendum will apply. A lead paint might apply. If there's any addendums in the listing agreement, survey, septic plan, copy of POA or trust. Those are conditional items depending on who you're dealing with and what their situation is. Once those are done, you hit submit to MC, and then it goes to compliance, and then compliance will review it and kick back what mistakes you've made and what you need to do to correct them. I view that as helpful. Some people don't like it. I find it really helpful because I want to be able to get paid as quickly as possible or at the closing table. So under contract. So once I'm under contract here, escrows, we got through home inspections. Technically right now we're just waiting for appraisal. So we move that there. We come back here and you can see that my probable income has now jumped up because I'm closer to the closing time. So the program says your probability of closing is higher. So you get to see what your potential income is. I find that to be engaging and motivating for me. Not everybody does. Reports, database health. Again, like right now, this database, so if you go from having a single agent database to the Teams one, your leads do not transfer over. In my personal, I have like 7,000 leads. In this one, I have 33 because I have a new virtual assistant that I'm working with and I didn't want to overwhelm her. We're just working on understanding how command works before I put all the other leads into the database. But what you guys want to keep an eye on is, how many have phone numbers, how many have emails. You can add all these things and it gives you a higher database score because you have more information from your potential clients, your current customers to work with. Is there anything you guys want me to look at or show you in this? Sorry, that was my daughter. I had to respond to text. There's a way to connect your command to dot loop and have everything autofill for you. Kind of like the iPhone, which I do not find intuitive and just find frustrating. That system doesn't work for me, so I happily will work in zip forms, download everything, and upload it just from my computer. But there is a simpler way, so you don't do it the way I do it. Do it whatever is simple for you. If you guys all have iPhones, it's probably a lot simpler. Tim makes fun of me because he tries to explain that the iPhones are built to be intuitive, and if I can't, intuitively figure out something, there must be something wrong with my brain, which is true. All right. Any last questions, guys?
How often do you submit your documents to the Market Center for a compliance inspection? Do you do that once you have everything completed that's required, or do you do it as you go?
So once I have all the required documents, I will submit it, and I try and do that substantially ahead of my closing time, so that this way, if there's something that needs to be corrected, I can get it corrected. I'm not like rushing to get it done as we get close to closing. The caveat to that is like, if I know I don't have a document yet, like usually like a trust document or maybe a death certificate, I will submit it and I'll add a note saying, I don't have the trust or the death certificate. I should be getting them by X time. Please review the rest of my stuff. They're still going to kick it back that it's not complete because it's not in there, but it does let you know if there's anything else that you missed in the document, so you can get that taken care of while you're waiting for the other paperwork. And you can use that tool to where it says appointment, any of the leads that you've been working on converting, you can fill that up, so that you could see ultimately, if you keep following through with these people that you're starting these conversations with, the potential income that you can make. So that's helping keep you, it's like a positive reinforcement of, if you keep working to convert these people, this is where your life will be. Anything else? Nope.
Thank
All
you
right,
so
guys.
much.
Thank you. It was a
Okay.
pleasure talking to you all, and thanks for participating. I hope you found some value added today. I suggest jump on the call with Tim in 10 minutes. I will be there as well, but much quieter because I'm just going to sit and drink my coffee and learn about what to expect when I go to Vegas on Sunday.
Thank
you
you.
so much, Carrie. Really
Alright.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
You as well. Bye-bye.